Alright, so this here is the DBoys wood and steel AK underfolder. As you can see, it is indeed the underfolder. And it has laminated wood handguards. And I'm sure you're looking at it and thinking, what the heck? Why does it look so odd? It's because I refinished it. Like most guns, I refinish them almost immediately after I get them. Now, I've had this gun for a long time, long enough to be able to tell you what's nice about it, what's not so nice about it, what you should think about changing, and just some other little things about it. I purchased it a little over a year ago, so it's seen some action at the field. I've used it myself, and I let my friends borrow it anytime their guns go down. I also want to mention that it's not going to come with this sight. This is an RPK style sight. I replaced it just because I wanted a different sight on my other AK, and this was the only one I had lying around. Looks kind of neat though. First off, I'm going to talk about the finish. The finish on the gun you get initially is actually really nice. It's nice paint. It has a good texture to it. It almost feels like a baked on finish. But after a little time, it started chipping in some places, and I had wanted to refinish it right after I'd gotten it, but the paint was so nice that I left it on there for a couple of months. So if you know, you don't like to refinish your guns, there's really nothing wrong with the finish that comes on the gun. It's nice, but like all paint, it will scratch off eventually. So just keep that in mind. Now, the finish on the wood, I redid immediately after I got it, the day of. There's a couple reasons why. One, it's very red, the stain that comes on it. It's a very bright red kind of color. Now, some people think the red looks really cool, but I personally don't like it. Just because a lot of people associate that red colored wood with Russian weaponry, and really the only red wood I've seen is on the Mosins and some PPSH stocks and things like that. So I think a darker kind of color, a more brown tone, looks a little better. Now, as you can see, it's kind of flat. That's because what I did was I just restained the wood. I took the finish off, put some stain on it, some darker brown stain, and only one layer of that, and then I just put linseed oil on top of it. Now, you can refinish it and coat it with like a clear coat, which is what I usually do, but I wanted kind of a Polish look. The Polish wood is a little more bare and not super dark, and I think it turned out alright. Another cool thing about the DBoys AKs is they come with this fake Bakelite kind of looking grip. It's not just a black plastic like the Simas come with. It's actually a browner plastic. Now, some people will say, oh, well, it's fake wood, but no, it's actually meant to look like Bakelite. So it's neat. It gives it a little different look than your average Sima. Now, the finish I actually did for the rest of the gun is I kind of half parkerized it. I wanted something that would be a little textured, but would wear over time, and as you can see, there's a little bit of rust, and I kind of wanted that look. So it's a very natural, kind of almost bare metal finish with a little darker gray color and a little texture. So that's what's currently on here. And of course, this is a clone of the VSC. It even has the same serial number. Everyone has the same number on it. This must have been the model they took from VSC and you know, used that model as the casting for everything on this gun that's out of steel. And nearly everything is steel. The rear sight that comes with it is steel. The bolt steel. Well, actually, the trunnions themselves are steel. The front and rear trunnions are steel, which is nice. Those are always cast. like cast zinc on Simas and regular DBoys. And then you've also got the rear sight block, which is steel. The retainers, steel. Gas tube, everything is steel. There are a few pieces that are not steel. The main one is the barrel. The barrel is aluminum, and that's because due to some import laws, and this is as far as I know, they can't have a steel receiver with a steel barrel because it's scary and it might be turned into a real gun somehow. So if you've noticed that the cast zinc receivers tend to have steel barrels, like notably the Simas, the old cast body Simas had steel barrels, but all these stamped steel receivers now come with aluminum barrels. There are some exceptions. The Real Sword has a steel body and a steel barrel. LCTs are the same way. How they get around that, I have no idea. But that's just something to be aware of, that this is aluminum and this will not finish the same as the rest of the body if you're planning on doing a bluing or parkerizing or something like that. The other piece that isn't steel that's kind of a bummer, and I read about this on forums, is the stock, the button for the stock itself. They're little pieces that fit into these holes on the stock and kind of lock it into place. They're not made out of steel. They're made out of cast zinc, which kind of sucks because that makes them less durable. Obviously, cast zinc or aluminum alloys are not nearly as durable as steel. The external pieces to it are steel. You know, the part where the sling loop is on, and also on this side it's steel. Now, as you can see, this doesn't look right. That's because there's a little cap that goes over it, and there's a screw that tightens in. Now, when I first got the gun, I thought by tightening that it tightened stock, and it did. But the thing is, it got to the point where it was pulling up on the piece that it screws into, and it just broke. So now I can't attach that piece, and it just looks like this. So it kind of looks stupid. So just letting you know, do not tighten the stock on the side. Take it off, take that screw off, take the cap off, and tighten this outer ring. There are holes all along it. One of them has a grub screw in it. Loosen that, and then tighten this. This will tighten the stock down, and then tighten the grub screw. You can also tighten it on this side by just tightening this whole outer piece. You can even grab the sling loop and twist, and this will actually tighten down the stock. So as far as performance, out of the box this thing was great. They come with 9.6 stick types. Yes, a 9.6 battery. DBoys come with 9.6s. Just letting you know that. They come with those that are actually decent batteries, so you get a good rate of fire. Of course, it's shooting around 400, something like that. You know, you can find the technical specs online if you want to, and I'm sure you will, considering that you're searching for reviews on the gun. But anyways, it's a decent rate of fire. The Gearbox sounds pretty good. I'll have a shooting video of this and you'll be able to hear it. I haven't replaced any of the internals except for the accuracy parts. So I've replaced the barrel and the hop-up bucking. The hop-up unit itself is stock, and the whole gearbox, it's never been taken apart, and I've had it for over a year. It just doesn't need to be taken apart. I hear all the time that DBoys is better for externals and Sima is better for internals, but honestly there's nothing wrong with these internals. I do agree that Sima is a little better on the internal parts, just because I've seen DBoys gearboxes. I haven't opened up this one, but my friend has owned a couple DBoys and I've seen them. The internal parts aren't bad though. They're really not. So don't feel like you need to replace everything inside of the gun right away. You don't. The only things you should really worry about replacing are the hop-up bucking and barrel, because they're pretty crap. So the accuracy was piss poor with this thing. I mean, I had groupings of 2-3 feet at 120 feet. It had a lot of spread and it was pretty inconsistent, is what I'm trying to say. So get yourself a nice steel tight bore and a decent hop-up bucking, and you'll have a really nice shooting gun. You know, you can get the cheap tight bores now and cheap hop-up bucking that works a lot better than the stock one. The stock one is just, it's so soft and it just isn't consistent. So I'd recommend replacing that. As you can see, there's also a Dean's connector. Of course, it's going to come with Tamiya, but you should always switch to Dean's because Dean's plugs are superior. Another key thing to note is that the battery compartment on this gun is actually pretty massive. Unlike some Simas and other AKs, where the battery stops at the sight block, the battery in this one can keep going into the gas tube. They even have the cutout for the wire on the side of the battery on the gas tube itself. There's also the cutout here, so you can literally slide the battery all the way down to the end here. That means that you can fit some pretty massive batteries. Here's a clip where, as you can see, my friend is sticking the a 3-cell LiPo, an 11-1 LiPo, into the dust cover. There's plenty enough room for that, and there's also plenty enough room for a really long stick type. You could probably fit a 10.8 volt in here, you know, or the biggest ones they make, because you have this much room, this much length. That is a lot of length for a battery to fit into. So you have a lot of options there. Now, of course, being a folding stock, you have no options to rewire it to the rear unless you want to do what my friend did with his little 74U. Is you can have a battery in between here, and then you just have a tourniquet around it. Of course, you'll need to rewire it so the wires come out the rear here, but that is an option. Now, I'm not going to fold the stock just because I've tightened these down so much so that it's really solid when it's out. It's solid. You know, a lot of the underfolder AKs and underfolder guns in general have really loose, wobbly stocks. The great thing about this one is you have the option to tighten it down on either side. So if you just want the stock extended, you know that's all you're going to use it for, you can really tighten it down and have a really solid stock for that. Now, of course, a lot of people buy the gun just so they can have the underfolder function, so they can make it shorter. You can definitely do that, but there will be a little bit of wobble in the stock. Just keep that in mind. It's not as bad as some of the other ones I've seen, especially because the stock itself is steel, the trunnion's steel, and the attachment points are steel. Some of those cast metal stocks get really wobbly, but this one isn't that bad actually. The selector switch is also really stiff on this gun. Not so much that you can't use it, but so much that it's not going to go anywhere if you don't want it to. It also comes with the sling that's on it. It's actually a surprisingly nice little replica of the Russian AK slings. It has a clip up front, as you can see, clip up front, and then the rear just fits into the loop back here. It's surprisingly nice quality, and it's cool that it comes with the gun. It's not going to break, alright? So don't even worry about that. The metal on the clip is a little softer than, say, the sling I have for my PKM, which is a Polish AK sling. This little button's a little softer, but it still is solid enough that it's not going to break or fall off unless you abuse the hell out of it. Now, just to clarify, there are two versions of this gun made by DBoys. There's the WS, which is wood and steel, and there's just the W, which is the wood version. Of course, this is the WS, but I'm going to talk about the differences between the WS and just the W, or the one that's doesn't have any designation behind it. The difference is that the bolt will not be steel, the trunnions will not be steel, the rear sight block and rear sight will not be steel. The gas block will not be steel, and the front sight assembly will not be steel. I believe the retainers on the handguards will also be cast metal and not steel. Other than that, the other version is still going to have the steel stock, steel top cover receiver, selector switch, all the usual kind of stamped steel parts. So just bear that in mind. I got this one on Airsoft GI. I don't believe Evike sells the steel version. They sell the other version. So you just have to make sure that's the version you're getting, is the wood and steel version. I recommend it. It's definitely worth the extra money to get these parts in steel. The gun just feels solid. You know, you hit one end and the thing vibrates through the whole thing. It's all tight. It's all put together. And the cast metal versions just don't have that same kind of feel. So definitely worth it. It also gives you options for refinishing it that you otherwise wouldn't have, and it's just an all-around solid gun. I enjoy this gun. It's a lot of fun to shoot. Everyone that's used it really likes it. They feel the same way. Once you upgrade the hop-up bucking and inner barrel, it's a very accurate piece. Gets good range and a decent rate of fire, as you'll see in the shooting video. And it's just kind of a nice, refreshing look to an AK, as opposed to all the side folders and even some of the solid stock versions. So if AKs are your thing, I'd look pretty hard into the DBoys full steel series.